Man, what's going on, y'all? I'm back here with another video. This time we're going to be doing a little bit of a meta recap, and I'm going to drop my hot take, which y'all have seen in the title already. I think Zamazenta is probably the strongest restricted right now. The most recent largest tournament, the Victory Road January Challenge, is, I think this is still the biggest by far we've had, most conclusive towards the meta. And Zamazenta ended up winning that. And, you know, if you've been around, you've probably already seen this team. This is a really awesome team. It's really similar to, and we'll touch on this, really similar to Michael's team from Worlds 2024. It has a lot of the same elements. I mean, the same Flutter set, the same Zama set, the same POW set, the same Rilla set. You have some additions in the Among Us. Among Us is changed. I forget which comes here. I think it might be an Urshifu or something, but we'll definitely see it. And the fire slot being the Chi-Yu, which we'll see definitely changes a lot between these teams as well. So the double grass is also a theme you'll see on these teams, and a POW is a very common theme you'll see, I believe, on all the teams we showcased today. So yeah, like, just getting into it, I think this is the first time Zama has ever been such a huge contender in the restricted department. Like, if you check this out in the user stats, we had Calyrex Shadow at the #1 highest, which is to no one's surprise, right? This thing's almost always, if not #1, it's almost always #2, at worst #3. Not very surprising to see this thing at the #1 usage. And #2 we have Zama, actually, which is actually really interesting. I think this might be one of the first times it's this high. But followed by that we have Pagos, Miraidon, and Calyrex. And one thing I want to show y'all in this column right here, just take a look at Zama's matchups. Amazing Pagos matchup. The Pagos matchup is so good, especially with the Dragon versions. Like, you almost can't bring your Pagos versus these teams. You have a pretty good Miraidon matchup. Like, it kind of depends on your Terra for one, but I feel like of all the teams, like of all the restricted ones you could have versus Miraidon, like, Zama's a pretty nice one to have. It just pairs pretty nicely, and obviously because you have a Zamazenta, you also have a POW, you also have a Rilla on that team. You have a pretty good matchup. The matchup is really good into Ice. I don't have to explain why. You know, the Y guard #1, just the fact that this thing does no damage back, even if you're high horsepowering, right? A lot of these guys are going max defense Zama now, so you're doing no damage, right? Overall, like, the matchups are really solid for this guy, and I'd say the Shadow matchup is a little bit 50-50, which is probably the best you can get for Shadow matchups. Like, Shadow is a really hard matchup, with the exception of Pagos. I'd say it's one of the best matchups you could have, Zama. So I think it's really cool, and we're gonna take a look at some teams. Of course, here's the winning team, which I also have in my builder. This is a really cool spin on it, and like I said from Michael's team, which we have above, let's take a look. Yo, showdown load. Michael's team. So yes, Michael's team did have an Urshifu. I was right. Let's take a look at this. As y'all will see, let's take this out. Open team sheet. As y'all will see, between these two teams, probably I say the most successful Zama teams so far, it's some really similar themes, right? I'm looking at the Rilla set. I mean, it's literally the exact same. Yeah, literally the exact same. No changes. Exact same Flutter set down to the Terra for both of these. The same POW set down to the, same Zama set down to the Terra. So, you know, here's where your changes come in, right? I have seen a lot of Taunt Urshifu here. I really like Taunt. I think Taunt is really solid on this team, because there's two things that can kind of wreck through these teams, especially Michael's version. If you take out the goggles, which a lot of people have been doing for Mystic, you kind of need Taunt, because #1 Among Us runs through the team. Otherwise, like, you don't have enough. You need to be positioned really well to get the consistent Among Us KO, and even then they can Terra out of a KO and just Spore, which is really tough for this team. With Taunt, you kind of negate that, and the other thing you negate is Wisp Incin. Wisp Incin is really good right now, and it's probably one of the best checks to these Zama teams. They'll go Rocky Helmet, Terra Ghost, Wisp, and sometimes Terra Water. Terra Water might be a little bit better for Zama, actually. Terra Ghost is a really annoying one. Terra Ghost and just Wisp everything on your team. So that's something to look out for, and I think Taunt will help cover that really well. Substitute is cool. This is a different metagame though. I still think this is definitely usable. I think Mystic might be nice on a taunt version. However, this is all really good. Like some other changes you can make, you could go Life Orb on Entei. I have seen that. I've seen Citrus. I think Ban is probably still the best item. Stone Edge was on here. This is also really cool tech, considering all that. Regardless, yeah, when we compare it to this team, like, functionally they're similar, very, very similar actually. Like, I think they almost play the same. Like, every mode that you would go Flutter Entei on, you'd probably go Flutter Chi with. And the main mode obviously being versus Calyrex Shadow. Calyrex Shadow have a really tough time versus this because you can't get faked out with either of your mons, either the Entei or the Flutter main. You get Oko by Shadow Ball. You take I don't know how much you take it. It's probably pretty close to an Oko from Icy Wind Flare Blitz. You can't exactly Terra out because Entei's gonna come back in and E-speed you. It's some really tough plays you have to make with the Calyrex. Likewise, it is really tough for Calyrex to deal with all this, like, you know, a Heat Wave, an incoming Snarl, an Overheat, a potential Shadow Ball. It's pretty hard for these Calyrex players to deal with. So I think a lot of the matchups you consider bringing Entei Flutter with, and you should almost always be bringing Entei Flutter main. I think that's probably the best lead, other than I'd say like Entei Pow is usable, but Flutter Entei is probably the best mode to use Entei with. In the same vein, I'd probably use Chi-Yu for those same modes, and she was a little bit more flexible too, I'd say. Just off the back that it can play on its own with Scarf. Like, I'm not saying Entei can't, but it's a little bit more frail. It got the one surging. You outspeed and do quite a bit of damage with this guy. And the Amoonguss is a really cool addition, and I think that's what takes this team locally to another level. Like, it becomes really hard to deal with all this offensive power and the Amoonguss clicking Rage Powder in the corner, right? You don't have all that with this, right? So, really cool teams. And to take a look at the final team, come on, Showdown. This is a team that's been popping up on ladder. My apologies, I don't remember who first used this. This is not made by me. I took this off someone on ladder, but it has been popping up on ladder, and this is a really cool version. And this one plays way more with the POW. These versions with the Flutter, POW is kind of your secondary mode, almost. I say like POW is still coming to quite a few more matchups than the rest of the team. Like, I'd say it comes maybe second to Zama, third at worst, right? Versus on this team, POW is your whole game plan, right? A lot of your game plans will revolve around leading Chien-Pao and a Dragonite, or Chien-Pao and a Zama, getting your turns correct, and going from there, right? I think the unfortunate thing with this is it's a little bit 50-50, and like the title suggests, it's monophysical, which can be tough to break a couple things. A couple tough matchups I can think of are, of course, Zama. It's a really, really big one, and you're forced to go Terra Ghost Zama on this version, because otherwise you have zero Zama matchup. Like, it's just not even playable. Like, and even then it's barely playable, I'll say. Like, Terra Ghost is hardly playable. All these guys have, you know, a Shadow Ball and Flutter main and a potential Chi-Yu even now. Like, it is pretty tough to work with. The mirror is probably the toughest part. Other than that, like, you have a pretty nice Shadow matchup. I think the matchup is not amazing. I'd say it might be a little bit better than Michael's version, though. This might have this version, the one that went in BR, might have the best Calyrex Shadow matchup, but I'd say, like, this is a pretty close second. Like, I don't know. I don't know where I'd rank it, but y'all can see how similar these sets are, right? It's the same Rilla set. This is Terra Water. Terra Water is a new addition we've been using. We've been seeing come up because Torn Ogre has been really good, actually. So Water Rilla makes it a lot more playable. The other thing we'll see is the fire type. The third difference. This is the third time. Like, we went from Entei to Chi-Yu to now a Heartflame Ogerpon. Ogerpon Heartflame is really, really good right now. It's just really, really strong. And again, this plays really well with the Chien-Pao. And of course, Earthquake plays amazingly with the Chien-Pao. It's like a whole lot of... I feel like I don't gotta explain this. It's like a whole lot of physical attackers that just pair amazingly with Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao is your whole game plan with this team, though. It's like a little bit, I'd say... Like, you have a few less options with this team when you compare it to something like this, which is this being the winning team, so many options. Like just take a look at how many modes you have with this team. You know, you can mix and match. Like you can use Amoonguss. A lot of people think I'll use it for my Zamazenta. Yeah, you can also use it for a Chiyu. You can also use it for a Flutter Mane. You can also use it in the mirror, Flutter Mane mirror, right? Sorry, the Flutter Zama mirror. A Flutter Mane Amoonguss lead is gonna be super good into a lot of these teams, right? A lot of people aren't gonna be leading Chien-Pao because it's not the greatest lead into other Zama. So you can take advantage with a lead of Flutter Amoonguss, things like that, a Flutter Chiyu. Overall, like, I'd say that this style of team is still the most flexible. If you want to get a feel for the team, if you want a little bit more, I mean, if you're one of those players that just like cleaning the game up and you want to do damage and control the board, you know how you play, this might be your team. Otherwise, I'd say probably the strongest team right now, the strongest Pokemon right now, without a doubt, of the restricted category is Zama, and I think that's where y'all should be looking out for. If y'all are picking up a Pokemon right now, I'd say Zama. I'd say Zama's the one because it's in a really, really, really good position right now. I think getting good at Zama mirrors, which might be the hardest part of Zamazenta, is going to be really, really effective, and you have some really damn good matchups, right? Like Zama almost single-handedly takes out Calyrex Ice sometimes out of contention. The Murata matchup is a little bit iffy. It's workable though, definitely workable. Wide Guard makes Calyrex pretty workable. Caradon is probably the worst matchup you have out of the major restricteds, but I don't know, like 1 for 10, 1 for 9, it's pretty good, right? Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this one. I'm starting school soon, so it's gonna take up a bit of my time, but I'm really excited to make videos again. I hope y'all enjoyed this one. Zamazenta for life. See y'all.